Democrats. It's Friday, September 23rd, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Life. Happy Friday. Okay, so we are less than 7 weeks till the election. Less than 7 weeks. And so go ahead and get your mind around it. Just like the political commercials have started, you can't get away from those. You're not going to get away from me begging you to educate yourself, to educate the folks that you know, and to help at least 10 people make a plan to vote. We have got to turn out in numbers that can't be disputed or challenged. We have to turn out in big numbers. So I come on here every day and beg you to vote. I come on here every day and try to make sure you know what's going on in local politics. And occasionally I'll have someone who's running for office join me so you can hear from them. So last week I had a brainchild. What if, what if I brought on a regular voter who isn't involved in the party, who doesn't hold a party office, who's not running for office, who has never been an elected official, and just get their take. So I asked a couple of people who I follow on Twitter, who I think have their pulse, their finger on the pulse of politics, and one person decided to join me. And so I want you to be nice as I welcome Matt McCoy to join me. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Alicia. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me. So I introduced you as a regular voter. So I didn't look you up. Do you vote every time your precinct is open?
Most of the time, absolutely.
Do you vote in person?
Absolutely.
No absentee voting for you?
I think I probably have a couple of times. I traveled for work quite a bit pre-COVID. So I think a couple of those elections were done through absentee or early voting.
Awesome. So you travel for work. What do you do?
I work in ed tech. I don't travel as much now, obviously, post-COVID, but before, yeah, a lot. My background is actually in community colleges. I was the chief technology officer at Tulsa Community College, where I spent about a decade prior to pivoting careers and jumped into the ed tech world. And so I work with community colleges now in the ed tech world.
So you are from the Tulsa area. I did not know that. You're just a guy on Twitter. I didn't know you were from the Tulsa area.
Yep, absolutely. Up in here in Jinx.
Awesome. So I've been kind of watching you on Twitter, and you have some real ideas about education in Oklahoma. I think that education is on the ballot, and I know that the Roe decision came down in June, and it's a big freaking deal, and the scandals and the corruption. But I think the number one issue facing us is education for a lot of reasons. Without an educated workforce, we can't bring other companies here. We don't educate our students. They're kind of stuck here. There's all kinds of reasons. But you talk about education. Tell me why.
It's personal. For a lot of reasons. I grew up in a blue collar home, lower to middle class family. My dad was a journeyman. He's a Vietnam vet, but he's a journeyman for an HVAC company. Instilled integrity, hard work, ethics, and public school was a big part of my life growing up. Grew up in Sand Springs, go Sandites, to my hometown. And had an opportunity to leverage the high quality public education that I got at Charles Page High School and parlay that over into OU to be a first generation college student and a graduate. I later went on to get my master's degree at Oklahoma State in education, and it fundamentally changed my life. So the doors that have opened for me professionally, personally, through my opportunity in education, it fundamentally changed me as a person, and I decided to work in this field as a career to give back. So that's kind of the backdrop. My wife is an educator in public education in Oklahoma. I've got a couple of kids here in Jinx, and so I know the power of public education. I understand the value at the personal level, so at the micro level, all the way to the macro level, from a state and economic development and a workforce dev perspective. It fundamentally can change an individual's life, a community's lives, and the state as a whole. So yeah, it's a deeply passionate subject, and I feel strongly that we are not making the best decisions from a state government perspective to empower teachers, to provide opportunities for students to the level that we should be doing.
So I think I've seen you talk about vouchers.
A couple times.
So you said your kids go to public schools.
Correct.
Your wife is an educator in public schools. Are you just anti-private school?
I don't think I'm anti-private school at all. I think I'm anti-funding private school with public tax dollars. Private school is a great choice. And in fact, Oklahoma has lots of choices for parents. I think sometimes that folks, we get labeled as being anti-choice as, who we don't want to fund private schools with public tax dollars. Not anti-choice at all. I mean, if you look, Oklahoma has a myriad of choices for parents. The base district that they live in, charter options, virtual options. There's a lot of choice.
Enrollment. We have open enrollment.
Absolutely, open transfer. There are just many ways and many choices that if you don't feel that your local public school is the right choice for you as a parent and your family, there are a myriad of options. I just fundamentally believe that taking public tax dollars and funding private institutions through educational saving accounts or whatever semantical term we want to call it, in this particular session, it fundamentally defunds public education. I mean, they'll say, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. We're going to cut this out. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's all a ploy. And fundamentally, at the end of the day, we're reducing the total pool that is going to be available for children in the state in our public education system. And furthermore, what I would also add is I think that if you look at the state constitution, we are mandated as a state to fund to have a public education system for all Oklahoma children.
I keep saying that. I don't have kids, but I keep saying it's in our Constitution that we will have public education. And so I think what is happening in our governor's office and the Secretary of Education and that ilk is counter to our Constitution.
Yeah, and I think you've got to get to looking at the outside influences of this as well. If you look at the out-of-state money, if you look at just the primary election and the dark money that came into some of the Republican races on after the voucher vote in the spring, you're seeing that out-of-state interests, and I call them out-of-state billionaires, and there's also some in-state, and I've used the term lackey, but it's the truth. There are folks in-state who are driving a voucher perspective that fundamentally places public education in a detrimental position.
There's a race, the congressional race in Congressional District 2, formerly Mccoy. Well, I guess he's still there. Mccoy Mullen's seat. It's open seat because he's running for an office that we have to make sure he doesn't get. But the folks who are running for that seat, there was $3.4 million poured into that race by a voucher guy from Pennsylvania. He owns a voucher company, and he's the only employee of that company. He poured $3.4 million into a congressional seat in Oklahoma. He's trying to buy a congressional seat in a state that no one's looking at. I mean, if we're just being honest, Republicans aren't spending a lot of attention on Oklahoma because they think they got us.
Sure.
Democrats aren't spending a lot of time in Oklahoma because they think it's a hard win. And so no one nationally is really paying attention to what's going on in Oklahoma. And this guy thinks that he can buy a congressman for $3.4 million.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like it, when the billionaires buy islands, not states, right? I mean, let them go back to that. Let the people of Oklahoma decide our elections and decide who we want representing us in Congress, but then also in the state legislature and as governor and as state superintendent.
So I introduced you as a regular guy who's a voter that I just see on Twitter, but I just want to be clear. Are you running for office?
No, ma'am.
You thinking about it?
Thinking about?
Mm-hmm. Are you thinking about it?
Not anytime soon.
Okay, so the folks who are watching me know that it's my job to recruit. So I'm just putting it out there. No, just kidding.
I get it.
So the governor's race. Where are you on the governor's race?
That shouldn't be in doubt based upon my Twitter feed. So where am I? I think the question should be, is Oklahoma better off in 2022 than it was in 2018? I think that the resounding answer to that is no, we're not better off.
But we're a top 10 state.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
According to his commercials, right?
Exactly, a top 10 state. I'd love to know the categories. Well, maybe it's the top bottom state reversed in terms of where the lowest in, the top lowest states in a number of areas, including education, including child well-being.
Well, so, I bet we're probably in the top 10 with scandals and corruption.
100%. Yeah. Right. And I think that's the thing that most, when I talk to folks, because I mean, while I'm not involved in party politics, I want the governor's race to go a certain way, just like I want the state superintendent's race to go a certain way. And so I'm actively out in my community and my family, talking to folks. And, at the end of the day, the corruption component of this, it's a resounding, I hear it resounding. Some people say, oh, it's just what happens in government. It's just what happens in state government. That's not the case, nor should it be the case. We've got situations with Epic. We've got situations, and that still blows my mind, frankly, just as an everyday Oklahoman, that you've got folks who committed that level of corruption and criminality, and taking advantage of the Oklahoma taxpayer, and it was allowed to go on for for a number of years. I mean, that's incredible. Should never happen. It should never be allowed to ever happen again. Swadley and the state parks, in that scandal. We've got hydrochloroquine, $2 million of that we bought during the pandemic. We got a pandemic center that what does it do? I mean, it's just one thing after another with Mr. Stitt. And so when you look
I have one question for you. Did you get a chance to order a Christmas tree on Class Wallet?
No, I didn't. We didn't participate in that program. But I do want to talk about that program for a minute, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So I actually worked at St. Gregory's University when I first got into higher education. And then I worked at Tulsa Community College, and I worked in the financial aid office before I got into the technology world. So I've signed a phys app. I've dealt with drawdowns from the Department of Education for financial aid for students. I know the stringency and the regulatory components of what the federal government and the U.S. Department of Education require on their aid programs. And I was blown away by reading the OIG's audit. It just struck me as amateur hour in the Secretary of Education office. That should have never been allowed to happen. Just the level of findings, the mismanagement, the poor cash management practices that were outlined. Oklahoma will. There's a potential that the undersecretary for secondary schools could require Oklahoma to conduct 100% review of the expenditures that weren't covered, that weren't included in the audit, which is $5+ million. And so if that does occur, the $600,000 we're required to send back now, that could pale in comparison, because we don't know. We don't know what else was wasted. So if that does come down, that's problematic. And so I just feel, as a voter, this issue should resonate with Oklahomans, because Oklahomans, we want competence. We want leaders who know what they're doing, who hire people who get things done correctly, and have that expectation that you're going to be accountable for the public tax dollars that you spend or that you manage. And I think that this, in and of itself, forget all of the other things that I have a problem with Secretary Walters. The way that the class wallet went down and the findings in the OIG audit, if that had happened with any other superintendent in the state of Oklahoma, they'd lose their job. It would be over. So. Okay.
So you covered class wallet much better than I would have. So thank you for that. Because I have a certain view, which is why I wanted someone who's not, involved in party politics. So have you met any of the candidates that are running?
I have. I met Joy Hoffmeister, and I'm going to go to meet and greet with Gina Nelson.
The one that's happening over there at the Mother Road, or the other one?
Yeah, I'm going to head out as soon as we get off the call.
Okay. I was hoping you would say that. So I have the excuse to say that if you are in the Tulsa area, Gina Nelson, who is running for superintendent of public instruction. And I assure you that if you have a conversation with her, she will have earned your vote. She's hosting a meet and greet over at Mother Road Market until 5:30. So, finish listening to me and Matt, and then head on down to 1124 South Lewis, where you get to meet. And I'm sure there'll probably be a couple of other candidates there so you can meet, which brings me to my big thing. The people you vote for should be people. You should have had an opportunity to meet them, made an appointment to meet them, or heard them talk in a setting like this so that you know who they are and not just names on your ballot. And our candidates are all over the place. I mean, Gina is going to be at freaking Mother Road Market. That's a public place where you get an opportunity to hear her speak and give her a chance to earn your vote. So how did you know about this thing happening today?
Through social media.
So nobody from the party, you didn't get some secret handshake, smoke signal.
Smoke signal. Come on now. No.
All right. And so, and that's kind of what my point is, right? My point is that you don't have to be a party insider to know what's going on just in the world of politics, know what's going on, have an opportunity to meet the candidates, know where the candidates are going to be. I keep striving that. I think it's very important. The people who are on my ballot, the people who are going to be on my ballot in 6 weeks, I've met them all. Now, of course, I have because I'm the chair, but I'm not all that special. I just go to the events that y'all go to. And so I'm encouraging everybody, if you know about an event, invite your friends with you so that they can understand who they're going to be voting for. So it's not just a name. It's not just the last sign they saw as they were driving over to their precinct, but that it's a person that they know why they're voting for, who they're voting for, something like that. So is there anything else you'd like to just throw out there about the election, about the governor, that you just want to share because you have an audience?
Well, I think from my perspective, I think we sometimes get caught up in the parties and the party labels and the party perspectives and all of that. And being in a majority Republican state that has its own perspectives, seeing the Democratic minority has its own perspectives. But I think for most Oklahomans like me who just aren't involved at that level, we just want our kids to get a quality education. We want our communities to be safe. We want economic development, to live in a competitive state, a competitive region. We want our teachers to get paid. We're not out there trying to be partisans. We just want to live in a top 10 state. We really do. And I feel like from my lens, it's getting people out there and talking, sharing that perspective, because it's a very common perspective. We just want to live in a, for lack of a better word, a normal state.
So that's beautiful. So you don't watch my live, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So always talking about what the Democratic Party stands for, right? We stand for a well-funded public education system, access to affordable health care, and access to economic opportunity. Those are the base. And I feel like who's going to fight with that? Well, I guess the voucher people, but it's just regular folks just want to know that there's a place for their kids to get a quality education. Right. And so, like I said, I wanted you on because I wanted to kind of remove the D in front of everything that I'm doing. Right. I wanted to give folks an opportunity to hear regular folks say what I'm always saying, because it shouldn't be partisan to want your kids to have access to quality, well-funded public education. That shouldn't be a partisan issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue to want your government just to operate in a transparent manner.
Absolutely.
But in our state, it has become that. Well, Matt, I appreciate you joining me. I appreciate having another perspective on for people to hear about. I won't keep you very long because she's only going to be there for another hour. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back here Monday at 4:15. You guys have a great weekend. Go meet a candidate.